All right. Hey guys, welcome back to season two of Bring the House Down. Your host here, Tatiana aka DJ TATIANATONIC. Today I'm here with,
Stonie Blue.
hey,
Hey.
today we have Stonie on here, and we're basically gonna talk about, Stonie's you know, being familiar with the house scene and, doing house music and basically, your music journey. And if you want to get into that, how did your start in music begin? Like, what was, I guess, your music background? Like, do you have any influences? Like, explain your artistry.
My start in music essentially came from what my parents would play growing up. So just kind of being their child, you kind of get a bunch of influences um, subconsciously or indirectly just based off what they're listening to. And you don't really know how that shapes your foundation. And so what they played a lot became my foundation. And that kind of evolved to when I got to high school. I would burn CDs for a lot of the students I went to school with, or I would burn specific mixes. So, like, they would write a list of songs, and I would go home and download them and come back to school and sell them a CD. And so, little did I know that my music foundation was kind of growing, and I was always attached to music. And then fast forward to college, I was still doing that. It turned into iPods, so I would be putting music on people's iPods and running a music blog. And so just my music knowledge was just kind of grow just from being into it and following it and trying to stay hip on new stuff. Um, and so I moved to New York in 2012, and the music scene here was incredible because there were so many different scenes you can get into. It was unlike what I was exposed to in Texas, or completely the opposite of what I was exposed to in Nebraska for college. Where here in New York, they had everything and all sorts of people, just a melting pot of different cultures. And so I didn't really discover house music until I got to New York and seeing that, um, just kind of understanding that Black people had something to do with the foundation of why it exists. I just didn't know that coming up from Texas or spending time in Nebraska. I just always assumed like EDM was what it was, and it had those like obnoxious synths and those crazy sounds, which I didn't understand when I was younger until I got to New York and I got to see like a soulful side of it, and just kind of got planted in through DJing around here in New York City.
Yeah, that's the thing I love about New York, that it's very open and it's very diverse. And like you said before, it's a big melting pot of like basically everything. So you get to explore like many different sides. So like you're not just limited to one thing. And like, of course, like with, house being a very big thing in New York because, with like ballrooms and stuff, I think like, yeah, there's a really big history. And also want to go into like, what genre would you like, I guess, define your music? Like, is it like experimental of like house or dance or club? Like whenever you do a set.
Whenever I do a set, I guess it kind of depends what the scenario is. I try to be more of an artist than a DJ, so I think I got into DJ to kind of fulfill personal needs, and it was always I kind of approached it more about my expression versus what the crowd wanted to hear. And so I think I try to stay close to that as possible, where I like to just kind of present myself and stay myself in whatever genre I happen to come across during my set. That's just kind of what it is in that moment, because there's so many DJs that can present something that the crowd is looking for, or they can go find that. I just try to carve out space to like attract people that are into what I'm doing. But it's hard to kind of like narrow it down into one thing. One of my favorite genres is to play electronic music, and specifically house within that subgenre. Just because the people that I tend to find that people that go to those events are more open minded and they're down for the journey versus um, sometimes like a open format or top 40, the crowd would like to sing along the stuff they know already. And I just find it more freeing on the electric side of the spectrum.
Hmm. And speaking about like open-mindedness, like is that like I guess like maybe like the type of message you want to spread through like your music, or like is there a story you want to tell through your music?
Um, I guess that would be the case. I just kind of have an open mind of what, like, I think of DJs like chefs or painters. It's like we kind of come up with like the canvas is here, and like this is what we're trying to paint on it, and we're lucky to have people that like what we're doing or like what we're serving up in that moment. So I think I'm pushing for people that have range and their open mind and their open heart. It's usually feels like the best situation to me.
And what is the process, I guess, behind your music? Like, what is it like creating it? Like, what type of mindset do you get into?
I think for me, a lot of it is curiosity and fun. Like if I'm opening up Ableton, which is the DAW I usually work in, I'm just kind of curious what I can kind of come away with in during that session. And I'm usually striving to make house, but I'm also striving to like make something that sounds like myself as well. If there's a way that I could create something I haven't heard before that kind of fits in those constraints of what is identified as house music. So I think that's kind of the foundation I'm going with. But a lot of it is therapeutic too because it's like fun to do and it's fun to create and it's fun to make this noise, and you get a lot of feedback when you're out DJing the, like what people move to. And so if it's not curiosity, I'm kind of aiming to like get people to dance to something I created.
And what do you usually, I guess, like aim for? Like, what, if this makes sense, like, what type of songs do you play that will make people move, or like what type of sounds do you aim for, like beats or whichever kind of like elements? And like, do you maybe also want to go into like how music has become like therapeutic for you?
I think the first part to the question, I just strive to no, I just want to make people feel something. It doesn't have to be like good or bad, but I just want them to feel something or walk away with something. I think I'm kind of striving for them not to feel like on the fence with what I present as a DJ. I want them to pick a side, whether they really love it or they really hate it. I just want them to kind of like decide from the first time that they hear me play if they want to ride with me for a long run or if they need to come back and check it out. I just want them to feel something. Um, and then the second question, I forgot what that was. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. The second question was basically like, how has music been therapeutic for you, if you're comfortable with sharing that?
Oh, music has been therapeutic because unlike any other art form, music and sound is something that's not tangible until like you can burn a CD, you can press a record, you can have a tape, and that's the physical thing. But once it comes out the speakers, it's like a wave that you can't hold. Like you can feel it in your body. It becomes like a mental thing. It can be real like cerebral sometimes. So I think it's just a special art form that exists, and it's such like a spiritual feeling, like creating stuff through audio. And so I think that's kind of where my therapy comes because I'm expressing myself in a way that I can't normally communicate with words or with visual,
Yeah.
but there's a feeling that like that I can chase forever. And I think that's one of the things that kind of keeps, I don't know, if you're into music, you're just always chasing that feeling of like
Yeah.
what feels good internally, mentally. It's just a feeling that's hard to explain, but I think that's kind of what I it's like the main motivator, just staying close to that feeling or always trying to like bottle that feeling up somehow.
Yeah. You like described it like perfectly, and that's also I can relate to that as well.
Mhm.
Um, with that, like with audio and everything, have you, I guess, say like taken like any classes or courses or like on music, or like have you been like kind of, I guess, like kind of self-made, if that makes sense? Like, and if so, like have you been like expanding your skills, and like what have you been learning about yourself more when you create music?
I've never took any classes, and now I'm more curious to do so. I've learned a lot through YouTube, and I've learned a lot through curiosity and just kind of self practicing and like repetition, and then also just having friends who are musicians or DJs, just a lot of conversations with them. I feel like I learn the most through interviews that exist. Like I'm always looking for a DJ that does an interview to try to listen and see what nuggets they drop, or someone that plays piano or produces music, just always listening to their stuff on YouTube. So I feel like I learned everything through YouTube mostly. And I forgot the second question.
No, you're good. Yeah, the second question was also like, not only I guess taking like in a way lessons from YouTube, from other people, and also like looking out like at what people do and stuff, but I guess what you've been learning about yourself, if that makes sense also, like from those videos, and also, being curious as well.
What I've been learning about myself. I think in the music journey space, I've learned that collaboration makes the music better. I
Yes.
When I work with people, I you just make stuff that you would never have made by yourself. And so I feel like when I collaborate with people, the music comes out stronger and then it does better out in the world. And that's something I kind of want to work on. I want like my original stuff to just get better without having to collaborate, which I'm not straying away from collaboration. Like I love that a lot. But oftentimes the people I do want to collaborate, we all have our own schedules and stuff. So I still want to stay self sufficient. And I also learned that I want to learn piano so I can get better at like solos with my music and to kind of put more flair into some of the stuff I'm producing. Because a lot of it has been sample based up until this point. So I just want to become a better musician and get better at the keys.
And speaking also on collaborations, I also want to get back on the piano part, but speaking on like collaborations, have you been doing any collaborations with any other artists, or are you planning on doing collaborations?
Yes, I collaborate with my label mate, Matthew Worldwide, um, and my good friend Ben Hickson, who runs Dolphin Records, and another good friend of mine named Steven Carmona. He's from Dallas, and we make a bunch of music together as well. But yeah, I would love to work with more people too. I think it's just all about timing, and like sometimes stuff feels forced when, like, if you're out, sometimes people are like, "Let's get up," and it's like we should, but then it's kind of like hard to align. But I want to figure out how to make more space like that organically when there's someone I admire, but I'm not really in the same circle. I just want to figure out how to actually unlock those type of collaborations.
And speaking of space, is that like kind of also the type of impacts you want to leave when it comes to your music, like giving others space to also, I guess, create after listening to your music?
Absolutely, I feel like if if anyone listens to my stuff, I would like for them to walk away that it is possible to be yourself and express without any expectations. Like I kind of got into it as this is something I want to learn and I'm going to go down this journey to now I feel way better. The stuff I've made when I was younger was personally not that good, so I feel the progression of like I've stuck to this thing this far and it's getting better. And so I just want to be example for people to come to know that it's possible. Just go through with it if you're interested. Like give it a try, see it through, make
Yeah.
100 of those things, and you're sure to walk away with at least 10 of them that you feel good about if you did 100 of them.
Yeah, like, you at least walk away with some type of result. I definitely get what you're saying. And like, I also want to go into back to the piano thing also. Um, would this be like, I guess, your first time like kind of playing piano? Like, do you have any prior experience with piano?
I have no experience. I would have a keyboard, but I don't play it how it should be played. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like I could push like one finger here to make like some sounds, but I want to get all my fingers involved to do like a Jamie Foxx style like solo at some point. But I feel like, let's say if I started 3 months ago, I have like 3 more years before I get decent, I think.
Yeah. And is there any other instruments you have in mind other than the piano?
uh the CDJ is officially an instrument to me. I play the CDJs and the drum machine. Those are instruments, I feel, but nothing like guitar or flute or anything like that.
Mm. And I also want to get into, say, maybe if you want to describe like the house scene maybe in Texas, like how that's like, or like, because I know how you described before, like you learned a lot more about the house scene in New York, but I'm kind of curious, is there a house scene in Texas?
There is a house scene in Texas. There's a really good party called Meet Me Underground, and they were doing Monday night parties. But I feel like the electronic stuff is growing in Texas. Like there was a lot of EDM when I was coming up. It was less kind of soulful, less like, of course, less Chicago house or like Detroit or New Jersey kind of stuff. And now like the interest is growing just as kind of scenes develop. The interest has grown so much. Um, but between Dallas and Houston and Austin, it's a lot going on now, more so now than it was in the past. But like I always credit Dolphin Records, like those guys, they were doing a lot of the stuff that was kind of like fresh and new down in Texas. But it's just not that much compared to like East Coast or like Detroit stuff.
Yeah. That makes sense. So like I guess
Detroit, Chicago stuff.
like everybody I guess kind of has their own way how they I guess portray house. And I don't know if that makes sense. Like the East Coast is different, the West Coast is different. I guess the South
I
is
was gonna
also
ask, like,
different.
I know that I think you explained before, like, your like inspirations from house music and stuff. But do you maybe want to go into depth into like how you became familiar with the house scene or like any more other inspirations in house?
How I became familiar with house was one, living here in New York, just kind of getting exposed to it more, and I was the guy that was like, I'm gonna be a black house artist because there's not many of us, and I went and I said that like publicly to realize to get called out was like, there's so many black house artists, you're just unaware of what's going on, and that was like that needed to happen because then I got exposed to so many people. And I think just at home I would always listen to YouTube and find like lo-fi house or like soulful house or listening to Moody Man and stuff like that. So that was like my entry point to it all. And now I'm inspired by so many peers that are doing such great things, and the scene is just so the scene is great here in New York. There's just so many ways to look. Then you can see people doing the right stuff, and it's in good hands. So I'm inspired by a lot of my peers, a lot of my friends too.
Yeah, and do you also maybe want to go into if you're planning on doing like any like live performance in the
Mm,
future?
I guess my as far as my performances go, it's mostly DJ stuff and less performy. So I play out a lot. I have a residency at this spot called Wulu Lounge where I throw this party called Body Rock, and that's one place that people can come hear some good house music and hear some great DJs. I usually open up the party and then book guests to do the remainder of the night. But it's been a good party, so that's a good one to check out. And then I always have stuff coming up, which is a blessing because that's not always the case. But the calendar looks pretty good so far for 2025.
That's good. That's good. I can't wait to see what you do out there. And I also wanted to ask, like, do you usually add any like visuals when it comes to like your sets or music?
Not too often, mostly since it's like I usually do nightclub stuff. So there's not really much opportunities to do visual stuff. Um, but yeah, I would love to do something in the future. We'll just have to make sense and really make sense. I like situations where the music is the main focus. Sometimes with screens and stuff, people it stimulates you in other ways, but I like when the visual I like when it's dark and the music is loud and the bass is hitting and you kind of focus on dancing and the music. I don't like too many distractions, honestly.
And do you also maybe want to go into like say what is like the perfect like setup for you like when you are DJing? Like, what do you need to have? Like, who do you need to have by your side, or like what do you need by your side? Like any like I guess materials or anything in general.
Most importantly is one the music for sure. I think the kind of you can kind of tell when well, I don't know if anyone could tell, but I think just preparing for a set makes a whole difference versus freestyling a lot of times because you kind of like are ready to go and know when to present things at the right time. So I think most importantly is the music. If I forget a USB or something, then I just feel inadequate to the situation. So I think the music first. Secondly, I'm becoming such a snob on how it sounds. Like there's some venues I won't play because of how it sounds, and so I think the way the speakers hit is becoming more important than it did earlier on my career. I just need that low end to kind of thump, especially with electronic music. I just need that feeling to kind of hit hard. I'm also from the South too, so like just need that thump coming out.
Yeah.
Other than that, just good people, open minded people,
Mhm.
open hearted people.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's kind of the perfect recipe to make something special happen.
Mm. And I have two more questions for you. And this one question, usually when I ask artists this question, it usually kind of stops them in their tracks. But define yourself like as an artist in one word and explain why.
In one word, I'd say curiosity, curious, because all the art that I've ever worked on was something I was curious about, whether I was good or bad at it. I was just drawn to it because I didn't know about it or I was fascinated by it, and that is somehow connected to my heart, which kind of always leads me down the right path. So just remaining curious, I feel, has always left me down the right path to find success or find friends or find happiness. It's just having that intuition to follow that path of curiosity just always keeps me where I need to be.
And do you have any like say advice for upcoming house artists or anyone, going in your direction in music?
Do I have advice? I would say my advice for artists in general is to know your why, know why you do it, like set your intention from the beginning
Yep.
and keep your intention close to you because there's a lot of situations that could kind of sway you off of your path.
Mm-hmm.
and opportunity comes and goes. You have to determine if that's good or bad opportunity. And also, you gotta kind of know the rules to break the rules. And once you break the rules, you can create your own lane. So just stay aware, stay intentional, and don't be afraid to try new things.
Yeah, and would you also say maybe it's also okay to like I guess make mistakes or like fail when, trying new things?
Absolutely. If we're, there's so much lessons to learn when you make those mistakes, which they can ultimately be, monumental moments in your career where that mistake you'll learn not to make that mistake again, or it could be a happy accident of like this mistake led me down this path that I should probably explore. And the mistakes too, like let's say you make a mistake publicly, it's like that vulnerability is something that we kind of need as humans, like especially as we move towards the AI world where things are kind of fabricated and things are like striving to be perfect. Like those mistakes still signal that we're humans and we don't always get it right. So
Mm,
I kind of allow the mistakes to be in there, even if I'm DJing and I mess up a transition. It's okay with me. It's like how do we recover from here and
yes,
know
yeah.
that there's some feeling involved in it. This is not a perfect computerized thing. Even though I'm using electronics and if I am using the sync button or not, like there's still some imperfections that are nuances that make the thing what it is, and that moment will pass and the story will be told as it's told. So it's just human. Just be free, let yourself feel like the perfection kind of gets make things stale sometimes.
Yeah. No, this was some really great advice. And it was also coming from me, like personally, very thoughtful as well. And I just want to thank you again, Stony, again for coming on here and just, explaining who you are and like what is your art and just basically everything.
Of course, no, thank you so much for the opportunity. Like I always love when stuff like this comes up, just to be able to get a dialogue going and to like leave our conversation in this moment out there for other people to take what they can from it or learn from it. So I'm thank you for the platform.
No, of course, no, thank you. And like again, like personally just for me, like I still want to try to explore, the house scene. So like just hearing, different perspectives from different house artists really does help.
Definitely, you should. If I could leave some recommendations, if you're looking for recommendations, or if anyone's looking for recommendations, as far as house or electronic music goes, there's a amazing party called Soul Connection that Lovey and Honey Bun throw, and it's one of the best parties out here in New York. So that's a good place to start. And also, my good friend Ben Hickson, he does amazing stuff. If you're in New York, or if you get a chance to check out Ben or Stefan Ringer, Matthew Worldwide, KT, of course, Black House Radio. There's just so many ways to, and so many people that are doing great stuff. Jada Lorraine, Muscle Cars. But yeah, those are some good people to check out.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the recommendations. And again, like Stoney was saying, check them out if you can, and also the parties and everything, just to get more indulged into the house scene.